very excited to introduce our next speaker, Kartik Sakthivel. He is presenting on a human industry in an AI world. And I've sat in on one of his presentations already, and I do not think that you have been, our team of people who are on the line right now, to a webinar on this topic that is more engaging, thought-provoking, effective as this one. Let's be clear. AI is fundamentally changing our lives with endless possibilities. Some people on this webinar today, on our symposium, may find this very exciting, and some may be fearful. But to use Kartik's own words, AI will only be successful keeping humans at the core. He is a PhD, serves as Vice President and Global Chief Information Officer for Limra and Loma and LL Global, a nonprofit worldwide trade association for financial services industry. He has a vast amount of leadership and management expertise across multiple industries. He has held leadership roles in companies of all sizes, ranging from small and mid-sized firms to Fortune 100 organizations. He holds a PhD in computer and information science, graduate certificate in information quality, a master's degree in computer information systems and IT, a master's of business administration. And we are thrilled to have him here because he does do a lot of speaking engagements and TED Talks. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Kartik and have you start your presentation. And thank you so much for being here today.
It is absolute delight and privilege to be here with you folks. And I think some of you might have seen a derivation, an earlier cut of the presentation I'm going to talk to us about today. I do have the privilege of traveling the world with Limra and Loma. And through that, right, I always feel like I learn more than I give. Like yesterday, I was in New York City doing a couple of presentations. Today, I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, doing a couple of presentations. So as I go through, if you have the capability to put your questions in the chat, I promise you, you're not going to break my stride. If you do, we will recover. I promise you that. So I'm going to share my screen. Walk us through our conversation today. So a couple of things to note as we go through, right? I do fundamentally believe that artificial intelligence, AI writ large, is going to be transformative for our society. For certain, it's going to be transformative for our industry, but it is going to be pretty transformational for our society. And I hear that a lot, Marnie. I heard that today about concerns that individuals have around AI potentially being disruptive, intermediating our jobs, and what have you. And I can tell you, I am an AI optimist. I do believe in the value that AI is going to bring to us as employees, right? If you have rote, repeatable operational things that you can delegate to your AI assistant and AI concierge, or just boost your productivity, or go from being an author of most things to being editors, imagine what you could do with that additional capacity, right? That is the promise of AI. AI is also going to create, I'm sure there are some roles that will look dramatically different, right, over the next 10 years. But we're a human industry at the end of the day. If you think about it, right, zoom out at the highest levels, we're a human industry. AI is not going to be able to take that away from us, right? So let's go through that, and we'll talk through some of these things as we go along. Okay, so Marnie gave me a lovely introduction. Kartik Sakthivel, serving as Global CIO for Limra and Loma. I've been in my role for 7 years. I also have had the privilege of being embedded a little bit deep into all things AI for the past 4 years. COVID happened. I wasn't traveling. I wasn't commuting. And I don't do board well. So I started doing a PhD in computer science with a focus on AI, and the focus on AI in financial services, right? So timing was everything. Have a little bit of background on where the industry has been over the past 5 years before generative AI just thrust AI into the corporate lexicon, right, into our hearts and minds. So been in IT for close to 27 years, and I had a variety of experiences. And I will say it is forums such as these, right? IDC went. Like, I am so delighted to be here with you folks, but you should take a moment and give yourselves a ton of credit, right? It is forums such as these where you get timely, topical, relevant information for your industry by the industry that's just going to, benefit your collective knowledge base and in turn enrich the industry. So Wherever you are, just give yourself a high five for being a part of this forum. It's really, really cool to see. Okay, so I started teasing this out a little while ago, but look, at the end of the day, right, when you zoom out at the highest level, at the highest levels, we're not manufacturing widgets in insurance, right? We're not making, physical products. We're not selling cans of soda, right? We are regardless of where in the value chain you serve in, you could be in underwriting, you could be in distribution, you could be in IT, you could be in operation. We are creating products and services that benefit the financial lives of our fellow citizens, right? There is inherent nobility in that. Limra research, this is from 2022, the insurance barometer, and this is primarily for the United States, right? But 106 million Americans lack life insurance or adequate coverage, and 44% of households feel financial hardship in less than 6 months, right? I mean, North America, we're the richest countries on the planet, and this is unconscionable, right? So anything that we do from an AI perspective is going to help streamline and bring more affordable financial products to our customers across the globe. So let's keep that in mind as we're going through, okay? So let's go to 2023. I think it's important to level set for us on where our industry was in Q1 of 2023. We don't have to go too far back in time. Let's be honest, folks, right? No one's accused the insurance industry of being on the bleeding edge of technological innovation, right? So we actually learned some good digital habits coming out of COVID, right? COVID was awful for the world, the loss of life, the financial calamities, right? We did learn and extract some good digital habits through it. Virtual worlds, telecommuting, right? Being able to have that work-life balance and flexibility. Digital signatures became a thing during COVID. Accelerated and automated underwriting due to AI became a more prominent thing due to COVID. So we've learned some really good new things, but the industry had been concerned about accelerating digitization across what is, let's admit, a pretty technologically conservative industry. We were talking about customer experience. Customer experience actually ranked in the top 3 or 5 concerns across the world, depending on where world you are, according to Limra data, going back to 2020 through 2022. And what's exciting about this, it's almost like our industry, life annuities, group benefits, it's not as, I would say, intimate as property and casualty, right? Like and home and auto, where your levels of engagement and the touch points that you have between you and the customers were fairly limited in the past. Now, with digital customer experience, it's all the more important to be a lot more intentional with our customers, right? So the industry was talking about customer experience and specifically digital customer experience across the value chain. Data, right? Data was prominently being discussed across the industry, specifically around these data-driven digital transformations, right? How do we effectuate this data-driven digital transformation across our industry? I think it was very exciting because our industry has generated gobs and gobs and gobs of data over the arc of time, but we have also treated data as a byproduct of our systems, a second-class citizen, and we can't just turnkey, wake up one day and get a lot of predictability out of it, right? So data was a hot topic. And I know this is going to be an alien concept to all of you folks, but our industry was talking about legacy systems, platform modernization, all the technical debt that we have accrued. We have carriers here in North America that actually have policy administration systems that were implemented in the 1960s. I mean, think about that. Before humans set foot on the boots on the moon, these policy administration systems were implemented, 1967, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's remarkable. It was like punch cards. Obviously, they've built on and bolt on over time, but legacy systems continue to be the albatross around our industry's neck. And then this happened, right? Even though we had AI is not new in our industry. We've been surrounded by AI for a good long while, right? At least going back 10 to 15 years in our industry, rudimentary forms of AI for sure. But even though we've been staring at it, AI exploded in our faces in Q1 of 2023, and that's primarily because of generative AI. So ChatGPT, DALL-E, and all of the other peripherals that have emerged, right? My personal theory, the reason why ChatGPT, and generative AI is so huge in the industry today, and it is huge in the industry today, my theory is that anything that starts off in our personal lives and then percolates over to our professional lives has a lot more staying power than the converse, right? Which is why no one hopefully is using BlackBerries, right? Because it was a professional setting appliance that necessarily did not catch on in our personal life. So AI has exploded and will continue to explode. Okay, so why are we talking about artificial intelligence across the industry? And make no mistake, every single forum that I attend, whether it's a CEO or CIO or a CFO, everybody's been talking about AI, right? AI does have transformative potential, not just for our industry, but let's start off as us as a species, right? Human beings. So I believe, my personal theory is that we are at a seminal moment in our lives, right? So it's this moment in our era is going to the age of AI is going to be as impactful as the rise of the internet, late 90s, early 2000s, right? And the introduction of the iPhone in 2007. There is no doubt in my mind. So it is a seminal moment, right? Number two, leave our industry aside for a second. Let's think at a macro level. AI has incredible potential to transform society as we know it. And I'll give you one simple data point, actually two simple data points, right? Take a moment and look at the stuff around you, whether you're talking about this mouse that I'm using to click, whether I'm talking about this Diet Pepsi can that I got downstairs. All of the raw materials that went into creating literally everything around us have always existed on this planet, right? It took thousands and thousands and thousands of years of human ingenuity to be able to stitch these raw materials together into creating all of the things we have around us today, right? Google's DeepMind AI surfaced 2.2 million new hypothetical raw materials in last year alone. 800 of these hypothetical raw materials are actually in active development by another AI system. Why do I say it's got incredible potential? It's because the cure to cancer is probably in there somewhere. The answer to unlimited renewable energy is probably in there somewhere. How to fight climate change is probably in there somewhere. The first antibiotic, that's my second data point, the first antibiotic discovered by humans in the past 60 years was actually discovered by AI in November of 2023, right? So we are at a transformative moment, and it's just going to keep accelerating, which gets me to my next point. The technology curve and the adoption of the technology curve continues to, technology adoption keeps continuing to go straight up, while the adoption curve keeps continuing to shrink, right? Unlike every other technology before it, AI is growing at an exponential pace, right? I have in IT 27 years never seen anything like it, right? And that's the point. We shall all admit, right? There are things we know, there are things that we just don't know. We are still scratching the tip of the surface of the iceberg when it comes to AI's potential for humanity. Now, all of that is good. That's all the AI. Let's talk about the NAI, right? Why does AI deserve a lot more scrutiny? So unconstrained AI needs to be restrained by human values. So if you're following the news, just yesterday, there was an open letter signed by close to 100 engineers from Google, from OpenAI, clamoring to have governments put some rules on the road and some governance around it, right? Because AI makes decisions, makes output just based on data that it's fed. It's not necessarily imbued with human values, which is where humans at the center for all things insurance value chain is absolutely fundamentally critical, right? Fairness and transparency is vital, right? So, for example, if I have an AI model that's producing an output, and David reaches out to me and asks me to explain to him how my AI got from point A to point B, I won't be able to do it, right? I won't be able to explain it to him unless I know exactly how this AI system that I've built has made trillions and trillions of computations per second, right? So AI decisions need to be fair and explainable. Imagine, especially true for things like underwriting. You do not want underwriting in insurance, any part of insurance, to even have the width of bias and proxy discrimination, right? Because we are a highly, highly ethical industry, okay? So number three, as I mentioned, AI is growing at an exponential pace and it's rapidly accelerating, which means that we have no real hardened playbook for AI, right? There are no, quote, rules of the road for AI, which is where it's going to be more important for us. It's unimaginable that we'll be able to get ahead of the curve. The best we should be aspiring to do is to keep pace with AI's growth. And last but not least, look, folks, AI war, right? People ask me all the time, right? Is AI an existential crisis to humanity? a threat to humanity, and could be 10 to 20% is the statistic, right? 10 to 20%. An OpenAI engineer said it's a 70% chance that AI is an existential threat to humanity. But even if it's 10 to 20%, right? People ask me, what's the deal with these AI wars? And I hate to break it to us, we've been at war with AI for the past 15 years. We lost the first battle, right, with a very rudimentary form of AI called social media. I mean, think about how divided the world is today, with and continues to be, primarily because of social media, right? So it's very important for us, as a society and specifically as an industry, to keep humans at the center for all things that we do. Okay, so just a quick reminder, AI is not new, right? We've been talking about AI all day, every day for the past year and a half, 2 years now, but we've had AI all through, in our daily lives. So if those of you who have ALEXA, I don't want to trigger your devices, or SIRI, right? All of these are forms of AI. Facial recognition, every time you unlock your iPhone with your face, that is a form of artificial intelligence, as are self-driving cars. Anytime you get into your car, your Google map knows exactly where you're going to go. AI, rudimentary forms of AI, are also the reason why you can get in front of your couch, in front of your TV, turn on Netflix on a Friday afternoon and stay there until Sunday night, right? Because it knows exactly what you want to watch, and it continues to stream that over to you. And last but not least, obviously, for social media, right? Extremely rudimentary forms of artificial intelligence. Okay. The other thing I want to educate us on, just ground ourselves, even though oxygen is consumed by all things generative AI, AI is not a monolith. Generative AI is one facet of the sprawling AI tree. So that eye chart is intentional, right? That's how large the AI industry is, with all of the permutations and combinations of AI. We use AI in our daily lives. If I pick up the phone and go, hey, SIRI, that's speech AI, right? Alexa, text to speech, speech to text. Vision AI is image recognition, right? ChatGPT, DALL-E is an example of that. But please do know that AI is a sprawling field of study, and most of these AI facets have percolated into our industry today. So where are we as a species, as a society, when it comes to AI? I think black holes are just wonderful analogies for artificial intelligence, right? So that's a black hole. This is the event horizon of a black hole. A black hole is a thing in space, right? Where the gravitational pull is so dense that nothing escapes it, not even light, right? We don't know what's on the inside. We don't know what's on the other side. But as soon as you hit that event horizon, you will be subsumed by it. That's a perfect analogy for AI. We don't know what's inside. We don't know what's on the other side, but we will absolutely be subsumed by it. And that's where we are, the event horizon. Okay, let's use a walk, crawl, run analogy, because we in insurance love the walk, crawl, run analogy, right? Especially when we're talking about projects. When it comes to AI maturity in insurance, this is where everybody thinks everybody is, right? We're kind of like the crawl to walk stage, but everybody is at the just trying to crawl stage, right? We are still at the very nascent stages of all things AI maturity in financial services. Okay. This is an important point, so I want you folks to remember this and evangelize it, right? AI is nothing without data, right? It's the bedrock. Data is the bedrock of AI, right? How does AI learn? AI learns like a toddler, right? You feed it a ton of information, and at some point, it's going to be able to recognize images, patterns, text, what have you, right? So if you feed it images of dogs, at some point, it will be able to recognize an image of a dog and separate it from images of cats, right? So if you're at home, you're watching that cute little puppy, and if you want to say "aw," go right ahead, right? Because that was my first reaction as well. Okay, so I find images to be a really powerful way to convey where we are in the AI maturity. So let's go back last year when generative AI, specifically DALL-E, image recognition, image generation AI kicked off, right? Took off in earnest. So this is my friend, MIT student, Rana Wang. She's not my friend. I call her my friend because I use her in lots of my presentations, right? So in Q1 of 2023, she was about to graduate MIT, and she wanted to create professional looking imagery, right? So she asked a image generating AI to create professional images of her. And this is what it spat out, right? So as anybody can tell, I mean, that is not Rana Wang. It's borderline offensive, right, on how that image was generated. That was Q1, right? That was like January, February timeframe. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting, right? Not necessarily insightful. So I started playing with AI myself. So this is me. This is a true image of me. This is not AI generated, right? Q2, that was my birthday of last year. And I fed it a bunch of my LinkedIn profile videos, what have you. And it generated this image, right? This was my audition tape for James Bond. So anyone who knows, that's not me. That kind of looks like me, but not necessarily me. So it was very rudimentary, right? Then I trained it again with fresh data sets in Q3 of 2023. And now we're getting closer, right? I mentioned it in January. I sent that image, the one with the orange, brown, rust-colored jacket, to my parents who live in Mumbai, India. They're in their 70s, but they're still pretty technologically savvy. And my mom's first reaction, so I live in New Hampshire on the seacoast, and she was like, well, if you're on the coast in October in New Hampshire, shouldn't you be wearing a heavier coat, right? And I was like, I'm the only child, right? It's not like my mother had 17 children. I'm the only child. If an AI can get close to spoofing my mother, imagine what it does to cybersecurity. Imagine what it does to facial recognition, right? So now we're getting closer. AI did make me happy, by the way, by projecting what I look like when I'm 70. And I was happy that I still retained my hairline, right? I am America's national hair gel reserve, as you can tell. If you ever have a hair gel crisis, come see me. I'm pretty sure I'll have hair gel for you. But as you can see, in just 2 quarters, right? AI continues to significantly progress, and it's pretty remarkable. And again, in Q1 2023, when I talk about humans at the center, this is what I'm talking about. Now, for those of you following along online, right, these are 2 different animals. You can tell if you watch National Geographic or Discovery, one of them's an alligator and the other one's a crocodile, right? We can tell that apart. AI could not tell that apart, right? They would have recognized it. Image recognition AI would have thought that these are the same creature and the same animal, okay? Let's have some fun, because this is a Chihuahua, right? And this is a blueberry muffin. The salient point or difference between these 2 creatures is that one of them's vicious and the other one's delicious, right? We can tell that apart, but in Q1 of 2023, image recognition AI would have choked on that image, right? It could not be able to discern a Chihuahua from a blueberry muffin. Same thing holds true with this. These are Labradoodle puppies. Again, if you're online, say aw, and this is fried chicken, right? You do not want to get them mixed up, especially in the fryer. So if you wanted to break image recognition AI, this is how you would do it in Q1 of 2023. We can tell the difference. Image recognition AI couldn't tell the difference. The same thing holds true with imagery of puppies and bagels. And that was just a little over a year ago, right? Just a little over a year ago. So keep that in mind. Okay. So let's talk about why it is that we need to be extra cautious when it comes to artificial intelligence, especially in our industry. So Amazon.com, right, wanted to hire candidates for IT jobs. So Amazon gets a lot of candidates coming to their doors. So Amazon decided to write this AI screening bot that used to screen inbound resumes, determine viability, and forward only the screened applicants in front of human recruiters, right? So they trained this bot on historical IT data, IT hiring data, right? Because all AI is trained on data. So unfortunately, IT has been a male-dominated sport for the longest time, unfortunately, right? So this AI bot self-learned to screen out all female applicants. Let that sit for a second. It's learned to screen out all female applicants. If you had women's college on your resume, out. If you had women's soccer league on your resume as interests, out, right? So at some point, the recruiters at Amazon, allegedly this never went live, right? Never went into production. It was still in pilot. They were implementing it. At some point, recruiters are like, why are there only dudes applying to our jobs, right? So they had to shut this stuff down. So so that's Amazon. And here's our friends at Microsoft. So Microsoft created Tay, which was supposed to be a chatbot, AI chatbot, learn from the internet and post on Twitter, right? Continually learn and continually post on Twitter, emulating an American teenager, right? Which was great until Tay self-learned in 4 hours from the internet to become extremely racist and xenophobic, right? And if you can think about September of 2017, Tay was actually the second most offensive thing on Twitter, right? But I mean, it's a remarkable time, especially for Microsoft. They had to take Tay down and publicly apologize, right? So the point is, if this can happen to two titans of technology, to establish technology titans, it's all the more important that our industry proceed with abundant caution, which our industry is, right? And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, so let's revisit my friend Rana. You guys remember my friend Rana from Q1 2023. She was about to graduate and she asked image recognition and image generation AI to create her a professional looking headshot so she can use that for LinkedIn. So, without context, this image generation AI made her Caucasian and gave her blue eyes, right? So obviously now you can understand the need for caution with all things AI. Humans at the center is absolutely vital for AI success, okay? All right, so what did we do as a worldwide global, the world's largest and oldest trade association in financial services, right? So Limra and Loma, nonprofit by the industry for the industry. We operate in 80 plus countries, and we have the ability to bring the industry together to get after common industry topics, right? Nothing more hot than AI. So we formed the AI governance group. I have the privilege of leading that group in December of 2023. I saw some of your carriers, some of your CIOs and executives are part of this AI governance group. We started meeting in earnest. We meet for an hour the last Friday of each month, and we have been doing that since January, right? So we have up to 70 executives, business and technology executives across 40 plus member companies. And we focused on two phases. Phase one is a current state assessment. Where are we? Where is the industry? We're deluged with information. We are drowning in data, but we're thirsty for insights, right? So the culmination of this phase one is going to be a current state assessment, finger on the pulse on where we are as an industry. We have commenced pivoting over into phase two to define industry best practices. Nothing like that exists for our industry today, right? What do best practices look like? And across these two phases, we have broken out into two domains. Domain one is business value enablement, my fancy way of saying use cases, right? What are the use cases out in the industry? What are the use cases finding value? Because those two things are mutually exclusive, right? And then the other one is governance. What does good look like for our industry? There is no overarching regulation. There is no overarching regulatory framework for AI. There are regulatory frameworks defining what good looks like, for caution, for specific domains like underwriting, right? You have the NAIC Advanced Underwriting Working Group, Colorado Bill 169, New York Circular 19, but there is no writ large what good looks like for our industry. So Limra and Loma, along with the industry, are going to define what we should be doing to make sure that humans are at the center and ethics are prioritized over all else. I'll talk about that in a second. Some of the key takeaways from this AI governance group that might be of interest to you folks. Number one, centralization of AI programs. Our industry does one thing better than any other industry in that we operate in silos, right? So billing operates in a silo from underwriting, which operates in a silo from marketing, which is very distinct from distribution, right? And never shall those streams cross, right? And there's a little bit of a joke poking fun of ourselves, but it's unfortunately true, right? We've done a lot to break down those silos and more needs to be done. But AI had also been running similarly, right? Actuarial had an AI practice, marketing had an AI practice, IT had an AI practice. What all of the AI conversation over the past year plus has done is centralize all of these AI programs under the perspective and purview of CIOs, right? Which is wonderful because that's how you get economies of scale and scope. Number two, again, absent regulatory guidance, right? And no overarching regulatory frameworks expected, right? Canada, you folks have CASL, GDPR for data privacy and protection. America has no data privacy and protection rule of the land, right? We've got 2 data privacy laws in California alone, and with these 26 different permutations and combinations, it's going to be a lot more challenging for carriers to define what good looks like. So we are going to take the stand on defining and what good looks like for our industry, right? Number 3, majority of firms, US and Canada, so we have a good amount of Canadian representation as well. Majority of firms, I would say 95% of firms have active use cases and ideation. And I love that. I love that. Out of these 100 use cases, maybe 10 of them are going to actually find value. But out of those 10, even if one saves you $1 bajillion, that's a really, really good story for carriers, right? So majority of firms have active use cases ongoing. I will also share we have come a long way in the past year, right? A year ago, some of these use cases, candidly, CEOs were asking CIOs to do something, so CIOs were doing something, right? These use cases were a lot more artificial than intelligent, but I think we have come a long way. It's almost a 180 in some of the value we are already seeing in the carrier community with AI. Number 4, education and literacy is going to be important. Take the time to educate yourselves on how you can use tools such as GPT, right? As long as your organization has a private GPT setup or DALL-E or what have you, to automate some parts of your own job, right? Like, one of my employees, it was funny because one of my employees sent in his performance appraisal, right? This was Q1 of this year. And I was reading it and it was really well written, right? His self-review. I was like, he didn't write this. This was GPT, wasn't it? And, we both laughed because it was, right? But at some point, if you know your employees long enough, you'll be able to discern what that looks like. But think about if there's any menial things that you do as part of your job, how can you augment and create some capacity for yourselves, right? So, which brings me to number 5. Look, jobs and professions will change. They will not be eliminated. This is not a job elimination play. Let me be clear, right? But executives need to start thinking about skilling and reskilling people. If you can make 10% of your staff from being authors to editors, that's perfect, right? What can you do to give yourselves a little bit of a boost, right? Like in productivity. Okay, I will remind us, right? Look, AI is extremely seductive, right? It's alluring. The promise of AI is there, but we shouldn't lose sight of the bedrock principles. Number 1, this will precipitate an organizational and cultural change in our organizations because everybody wants change. No one wants to change, right? When generative AI is introduced across your firms and people start getting capacity, right, there's going to be some level of cheese moving involved and debris will be everywhere. Get it? Right? Thank you. That was my dad joke. Second dad joke for the day. But it's important for us to help our employees navigate that cultural change curve in our organizations. Number 2, we talked about eradication of silos. AI will not be successful in a silo. So please make sure you're working in concert with the rest of your enterprise. Number 3, talked about data. Think about the Amazon example. Data is vital, right? The quality of data, the availability, the cybersecurity aspect of it. You cannot have great AI with bad data. And please make sure you continue investing and supporting your organization in modernization of your systems. They're going to be the anchor that weighs us down. Okay, so I'm going to give us some quick tips and tricks on how we can find success with AI. So number 1, we have to leave in the rear view these AI fiefdoms and principalities and coalesce, right? Manage these programs centrally, federate them, if you will, right? So number 1, it has to be aligned. Look, AI is a tool. It's an enabler. It's not a silver bullet. It's not a panacea. It's not going to fix all of our problems, but it's going to enable us to fix our problems, right? It needs to be taken seriously, woven into the fabric of our strategies, and then communicated from the top down so that you can align your resources and your organization around using it as an enabler. Number 2, if you're at home, stay on mute, but repeat after me. Data is a business issue that has long been masquerading as an IT issue. Data is everybody's problem, right? The availability of data, the quality of data, the security of data. Data is a business issue. And again, if I strike it rich, it's because I put this on a t-shirt someday. Repeat after me. Great AI plus bad data equals awful AI. I promise you. You have the best AI models in the world, but if you have garbage data, you're going to have garbage AI, right? Okay. Number 3, so the AI governance group that I mentioned that Limra and Loma will be leading up with 70 business and technology executives, we will be issuing best practices. It's not going to be one and done. We're going to continue issuing deliverables through the next several months. Please do pay attention to those, and this is especially for the C-suite. Make sure those are being applied in your organizations. We're trying to mutualize the problem solving across the entire industry, right? So we're going to define what good looks like for our industry. We're going to define, absent regulation. We're going to define what good governance and good compliance looks like for our industry. It has to be safe, it has to be effective, it has to be ethical, and it has to be responsible, right? Okay. Number 4, for those of you who've been in the industry for a while, especially on any IT or systems projects, you know that we struggle to do big things well across the value chain, regardless of where you are. We do not do big things well in our industry. So make sure that you think big, but you start small, but be open to failure. Fail fast and learn faster. Look, honestly, I would expect 10%, 20%, 30% of all AI things that organizations do will fail. It's okay. It's okay. Let's start building a fault tolerant culture and fail forward, learn from it, and move on. I think that's going to be critical for us. Okay. Let's remember, regardless of how big or small your firm is, regardless of size, everybody's in the same boat, right? We all have the same challenges and the same opportunities. All the stuff around AI, especially generative AI, changing the value chain, this is a cultural transformation, which requires committed leadership from each and every one of us through the organization, right? And people often ask me, is my job going to be at risk due to AI? And what I tell people is, our jobs will change, and perhaps significantly depending on what job it is, right? But it's unlikely that our jobs are going to be at risk due to AI, but it might be likely that our jobs are at risk due to somebody who knows how to use AI, right? We are, the way I see it, we are a human industry. If AI can automate 10, 20, 30% of my job, if I'm an agent or an advisor, I can focus on engaging with my customers. I can focus on doing sales. If I'm an underwriter, I can go back and check the veracity. I can have philosophical debates between the art and science of underwriting, right? These are all of the things that it's going to create capacity for us. Be educated on AI. It's going to be pretty important in the next few years. Okay. So look, I quote this a lot. AI and robots are thinking machines that try to feel. Humans are feeling machines that try to think, right? The hardest skills for us to develop as professionals are the softest skills, right? AI can automate a bunch of stuff, but you know what AI will never, ever, ever be able to automate? It will never be able to automate leadership, ethics, morality, sound judgment, values, community, collaboration, communication, organ. These are inherent human qualities that make us, right? These are not going to be able to be automated. So it's important for us to continue developing these soft skills, not just in ourselves, but also in our fellow employees and our teams. So in a nutshell, the next decade of insurance is going to be dramatically different than the past one, right? We're all mature. We're a mature industry, and we have mature firms with mature practices, a legacy, a heritage, right? That's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece, but we also have a blank canvas at the same time. So my message to industry leaders is we need to continue investing in the opportunities, but make sure that we're conscious about avoiding the risks. And last but not least, once again, do not lose sight of the fundamentals, right? Do not lose sight of making sure that we're paying down our technical debt. Do not lose sight of data. Do not lose sight of the organization and cultural change. And last but not least, do not lose sight of the fact that even though AI is going to be ubiquitous all around us, what makes us is the fact that we're a human industry in an AI world. So regardless of where in the value chain you serve in, you're contributing to the financial stability and protection of your fellow citizens, right? So from me to you, thank you for what you do for the global industry.
Thank you so much for that. Outstanding. Folks, I hope you appreciate the guidance that Kartik brings. He's got a very specific view on the world and a compelling way of presenting as well, which is much appreciated. Kartik, if I was to ask one question with regard to AI, so there was actually a question from an advisor on our previous with our previous panel about what would the curated plan member, what could the AI-driven, AI-assisted plan member experience look like in a benefit plan? But I think there's something even more before we get to that one that I'm curious about. I had made a comment in the previous session that I think that technology in general and the convergence of it in many ways as to how it's going to present, it's not just the AI, the data analytics, but it's curated plan member experiences, it's platforms that are being built, a whole bunch of different things are going to require a specialization by advisors that is going to actually render, it's going to shrink the market. There's going to have to be consolidation amongst advisors because advisors just simply won't be able to keep up with the pace of knowledge that is required. You can't be a generalist anymore. You've got to specialize. So if you were to look at AI in terms of real opportunities to support advisors, what would it be? Communications like ChatGPT, writing an article or refining a letter? Are there process management tools that advisors should start looking towards building or acquiring? What other kinds of applications in the advisor world would there be that would be meaningful from an AI perspective?
So number one is process efficiency, right? So if you have friction in your process, realize that every single time you spend even a minute doing stuff that is not in furtherance of your customers, right, of the insured, that's a missed opportunity, right? So if AI can help you de-friction your value chain, right, your daily jobs, and if you could spend another 30 minutes on just connecting with your customers, doing touch points, right? Understanding their needs, understanding what their needs are going to be in the future with life events. I mean, that's an incredibly powerful thing, right? So create capacity for yourself to engage with your customers. Number two, it's prospecting and sales, right? So as you create time, imagine what you could do with an extra hour. You know, how many more calls can you make? How many more people can you protect, right? Number three, I think it's knowing thy customer. You know, people use Salesforce, HubSpot, other CRM tools. You talked about data analytics, David, right? I mean, think about how much you can do to harvest that. Like Salesforce is baking into their product something called Einstein AI, right? To be able to do scenario planning, for example, simple scenario planning, right? Life event ABC happened. How can I provide, an additional service to Mr. and Mrs. Jones, right? Like, what do I do to make sure? And then imagine how incredibly powerful it is when you're engaging with your customer on their terms, on their turf, right? It's not about making a sale. It's about connecting with people, and AI will allow you to do that.
So you're suggesting that there are some, this is interesting, Salesforce.com, and there may be other similar CRM type tools where I had once acquired Salesforce when I had a practice years ago, but I found it way too complex a tool. It was an overkill for what I needed. So I used it for about a year, spent a couple of $1,000s on professional services, modifying it for my needs, but it just wasn't, it was overkill. And I let it go. And I actually reverted to using Outlook with some modifications. But what you're suggesting now is that some of these traditional tools, what I will call traditional tools, are going to be empowered with AI for very specific use cases for us, as you're suggesting, data mining across our own client bases to create more efficiency.
And every single vendor, right? So look, generative AI is going to be baked into every technology platform we use, whether it's Salesforce, and whether you're a smaller agent advisor and you don't, if Salesforce is overkill, it will show up in Microsoft Office, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint. It already has, right? So Microsoft Copilot is out there to be able to help you. Imagine how incredibly powerful it is if you're, say, you've got Limra training, right, or Loma education behind you, and you're going to go meet with a high net worth client, a high net worth couple, and you just need a refresher. How do I engage with a millennial couple? And as you're driving, your AI concierge, your AI assistant is walking you through it, and you can ask it questions. You can interact with it, right? I mean, that's not too far off in the future. It's not science fiction, right? We're probably a year or two out from those kind of things becoming a very, very palpable reality for us.
So for the people that are on the call, of the advisors, I think we've got about 120 or so advisors that are on the call right now, probably of a very wide demographic background or workplace background. The structures of their businesses, etc., may be quite varied. But what is the urgency for them, without being kind of cataclysmic, I guess, about it? But what's the urgency for advisors to kind of upskill with regard to the utility of these tools, otherwise being kind of moved aside?
Yeah, urgency is an interesting verbiage, right? So I will argue, if we go back to the early 2000s, right, when everybody started using the internet writ large, everybody started using email. Email is a great example. 25 years ago, less than 25 years ago, was when you and I sent and received our first emails, right? Can you imagine life before email today, like it's can't, right? So some of that is natural organic progression. Like, oh, this is actually makes my job better. You don't have somebody with a mail card doing you remember those inter-office manila envelopes, right? So part of that, it's going to be part of the course, right? In terms of being able to co-opt these platforms. Same thing happened when the internet came about, right? Like imagine life before Google. Imagine life before Google Maps. Remember phone books and like the AAA maps, CAA maps, right? For Canada. Like some of that is going to be just organic in nature. You don't want to be the person who goes, this internet thing is just a fad, right? So, I think the more you start utilizing these tools, that's why GPT caught on, right, David? Because it's so easy and easy to understand. You don't need a manual. You just go there, ask it a few questions, and you start getting a little bit more sophisticated, right? So you go, acting as an advisor, can you give me tools and tips for how do I engage with high net worth clients, right? And it'll spit something out for you. It's just, it's really, really easy to learn, adopt, and co-opt. You have to be discerning, right? Because it can tend to hallucinate. It's a technical term, hallucinate. If models AI doesn't know what it's talking about, it'll just randomly make stuff up, which is where the humans at the center and judgment is going to be vital.
So the generative AI part, when people use that term, I don't think of Chat GPT as generative AI, but the reality is it is. You ask it a question, it generates an answer. But what about creating algorithms or business processes? Are we ready? Are these systems ready? And so is there urgency upon advisors to actually start to dig in and really push hard? And what's the risk to advisors ignoring it?
So there is a ton of FOMO out there, and I think you're getting the 5-minute get off the stage warning, right? But there's a significant amount of FOMO out there. Look, I don't think anybody's going to quote fall behind if you're 6 months or a year late to the party. But just know that everybody else will have a 6-month head start on you, right? They would have learned some stuff and they'd be applying things within their portfolios that you might be late to the game for. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to start using it professionally. Start using it personally. Ask it. Today, I promise you, you go to GPT now and ask it for a recipe for bread and say, gluten-free, or I want to make sourdough because everybody learned to do that during COVID. It will give you a pretty compelling response. Start there, right? I would urge us to start figuring out how we can start co-opting this into our daily lives. I think that's going to be pretty important to do.
Amazing. Kartik, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you taking the time out. I know how busy you are, and finding this space to fit us in is much appreciated. Thanks a million.
Thank you all. It's a privilege. All right, I'm going to go. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.